You know that feeling when you're walking away from an argument and your heart is just still hammering against your ribs?
Oh, yeah, we've all been there.
Right, like your breath is shallow, your hands might have been shaking a little bit, and you catch yourself wondering, why did that just get so incredibly heated?
Yeah, especially when the topic is totally mundane.
Exactly. You replay the tape in your head, and maybe you were debating, I don't know, the absolute best way to load the dishwasher or what time you actually needed to leave for a dinner party.
Or a minor difference in how you interpreted a two-line email.
Yes, seemingly tiny things. But in the moment, your nervous system reacted as if it were a matter of life or death. It felt like you were going to war over a deeply fundamental reality.
It is a universally exhausting human experience. I mean, truly.
Yeah.
And usually the very first place our mind goes after an argument like that is outward.
Right, we point the finger.
Exactly. We blame the other person's stubbornness. We diagnose them as just being completely irrational, or, we turn it on our own communication skills.
Like if I had just found the perfect string of words, right?
Right. We think if I had just articulated my logic a fraction better, we wouldn't be in this exhausting mess. We treat the disagreement like a math equation we just haven't solved yet.
But our source material for this deep dive, which is this fascinating text called The Compass of Subjective Truth, suggests that we are looking at the mechanics of our disagreements entirely backward.
Completely backwards.
So the mission of our deep dive today is to explore a paradigm-shifting idea. What if the core problem in our most frustrating arguments isn't the other person's opinion at all?
That is the big question.
Yeah, like what if the actual error is our fundamental, invisible assumption that there is only one right answer in the room to begin with?
It's a huge shift in how we think.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Mm.
Because to understand why we fight so desperately over who is right, we have to move past the basic cliche idea of, everyone has a different perspective.
Right. We all know that conceptually.
We all know that.
Or
What we need to look at is how a body actually manufactures a truth in the first place.
that is exactly where we have to start. We have to strip away the idea that our conclusions are just abstract logic floating in a vacuum.
Like they're just pure math.
Exactly. A person's nervous system is a highly tuned instrument, and it is physically shaped by what it has had to survive and navigate over decades.
Right.
So when someone states what is right to them, they aren't just pulling a philosophy out of the ether, they are reporting the real-time physiological output of their entire biological and historical system.
Wow.
And the critical mechanism to understand here is that this output is always perfectly accurate to its inputs.
I want to ground this for you listening because it's easy to nod along to words like biological inputs. Think about it like two people eating a deeply spiced, really intense dish.
I love this analogy.
Right. So one person grew up in a culture where fiery chilies were in every meal, their sensory receptors adapted, and their brain associated that heat with family dinners and comfort.
Yeah, it's a positive association.
But the other person grew up on a completely mild palate. They sit at the same table, they ate the exact same bite of food.
Right.
The first person says, oh, this is perfectly seasoned. The second person says, this is actual physical agony. Now, if you ask for the ultimate truth of that dish, you hit a wall.
You do, because neither is lying.
Exactly. They are just processing the identical present moment through wildly different historical wiring.
What's fascinating here is how we can take that biological reality and apply it to complex emotional interactions. Let's look at how the brain actually encodes these truths.
Okay.
The amygdala, which is essentially your brain's threat detection center, catalogs your past experiences. So if someone grew up in a household where a raised voice always preceded a dangerous, chaotic situation.
Their nervous system wires a direct connection between volume and threat.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
Cortisol spikes. Their body literally prepares to fight or flee. Now, put them in a relationship with someone who grew up in a loud, boisterous, loving family.
Where shouting over each other was just how you showed passion.
Right. So when they get into a debate about the dishwasher, and the second person's voice gets a little loud out of sheer enthusiasm, the first person's nervous system screams danger.
Ah, I see. So the passionate person says, I'm just engaged in the conversation. And the other person says, no, you are being aggressive and unsafe.
Yes. And they will fight to the death over who was right about the nature of the conversation.
Because they're both literally feeling their own truth.
Precisely. They will try to solve a biological divergence using intellectual arguments. The material we are looking at uses a brilliant framework for this.
The compass idea.
Right. Rightness is not a flag planted on neutral ground that everyone is racing toward to capture. Truth in human interaction is a compass reading.
A compass reading?
It is geographically specific. It is true for the exact coordinates of the body it was taken from.
A compass reading instead of a flag. That just shifts the whole geometry of an argument.
It really does.
Because if truth is a flag, it's a zero-sum game. Only one person can capture it, and everyone else is fundamentally a loser. But if it's a compass reading, my physical north doesn't suddenly invalidate your physical north, because we are literally standing in different environments.
You're in different spots on the map.
But here's where it gets really interesting. And honestly, where I found myself pushing back on the material a bit.
Oh.
Yeah, because if we are all just walking around with our own historically shaped compass readings, why do our disagreements get so incredibly intense?
That's a fair question.
Right. If my truth is just my truth, based on my wiring, why on earth do I care so much if your compass points somewhere else? Doesn't this paradigm just lead to total chaos where I say the sky is green and expect you to respect my truth?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to distinguish between objective reality and subjective human experience.
Okay, so separating facts from feelings.
Yeah, we aren't talking about physics or math or the literal color of the sky. We are talking about emotional boundaries, interpretations of respect, feelings of safety.
The actual fabric of human relationships.
Yes. The reason the heat gets turned up so high in these realms is due to a structural flaw in how we process disagreement. It is called the single-seat mistake.
The single-seat mistake. Explain the mechanics of that, because that feels like the root of the whole issue.
It really is.
Yeah.
We culturally treat rightness not as a sprawling landscape of compasses, but as a chair with only one single seat.
Okay.
And our brains have been conditioned to believe that if I am sitting in the seat of rightness and you come along with a completely different report of reality, you aren't just offering a new perspective.
Right.
Your differing compass reading is interpreted by my brain as an attempt to forcefully evict me from the chair.
Wow. So it becomes an existential threat. If you are right, I have to be wrong. And if my nervous system's output is wrong, then my reality is fractured.
Yes. That is why the mundane debate over the dinner party departure time feels like a war.
It's not about the clock at all.
Not at all. The content of the argument, the time on the clock, is practically irrelevant. The massive emotional heat is generated by the felt somatic sense that my grip on reality is being threatened.
That is wild.
The brain literally processes social invalidation using much of the same neural circuitry that it uses to process physical pain.
Wait, really? Physical pain?
Yes. So when your reality is contradicted, your mind doesn't just think, oh, an alternate viewpoint. It panics.
It panics because the mind uses being right as its primary architecture for safety.
Exactly.
I was reading this section and thinking about how desperately the mind needs predictability. The mind needs to know where it stands so it can predict what happens next.
It hates the unknown.
So when someone contradicts you, the ground shifts, and the mind immediately reaches out to correct the other person to stop the earthquake.
That impulse to correct is a survival mechanism, but it completely ignores the mechanics of the human body. Well, the mind demands correction to feel safe, but the body operates on a completely different currency. The body does not actually need to be right to feel secure. What the somatic system the body needs is to be met.
Met. So what does this all mean? Let's break down that word, met.
Sure.
When I was trying to map out this dynamic, the mind demanding correction while the body just needs to be met, I kept picturing a car broken down on the side of the road.
Okay, I like where this is going.
The mind is the car's GPS system. It hates uncertainty. It hates being off the route, so it's desperately barking out directions, trying to instantly reroute back to the known destination.
It's shouting, turn left, correct the course.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the body is the engine, and the engine has stalled out completely because it has run out of oil or it feels physically unsafe to move.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize it. You cannot fix a stalled engine by furiously tapping on the GPS screen.
Right. You can't just throw intellectual directions at a physiological shutdown.
No, you can't.
Being met means getting out of the car, opening the hood, and acknowledging the mechanical reality of the engine without judging it for not driving.
Yes.
When you jump straight to correction in an argument, when you hit them with a battering ram of logical facts to prove why their feelings about the dishwasher are inefficient, you are ignoring the stalled engine.
You are telling their nervous system that its sensory readings are defective.
And the biological consequence of that is severe, isn't it?
It is. If a body is repeatedly told that its compass is broken, It develops a profound distrust of its own internal signals.
That's heartbreaking.
It begins looking outward for permission to know what it already inherently feels. The material points out a profound truth about behavioral change here.
You're just
People simply do not grow or shift their perspectives by being argued out of their current stance. They grow by being so deeply and fully met in their current location that the nervous system finally downregulates.
the fight or flight response turns off.
Exactly. The vagal tone shifts from defense to social engagement. And only then, once that internal surety is established, does the next step become obvious from the inside.
That makes so much sense.
The material states it beautifully. Surety must precede movement.
Surety must precede movement.
When we argue, we are almost always trying to force movement before we have established surety. We try to drag them to our coordinate on the map before acknowledging the ground they are currently standing on.
And forced movement only ever produces violent resistance.
Or a hollow, weak compliance that shatters the moment you look away.
This completely upends how we think about persuasion. We're taught that persuasion is about building an airtight case, right? Pointing out the logical fallacies in the other person's argument and overwhelming them with evidence.
The battering ram approach.
Exactly. But if their engine is stalled, your airtight logical case is completely useless noise.
It's just more threat.
So this naturally brings us to the operational part of our deep dive. If battering rams of facts don't work, and if we are dealing with a world full of conflicting compass readings, how do we actually live together?
Right, what do we do on Tuesday?
Yeah. We can't just passively shrug and say, well, everyone's right, so nothing matters.
Yeah, passive apathy is definitely not the goal. Respecting the diverse geography of human truth is a highly active, muscular practice.
Okay.
The source material distills this paradigm into 4 distinct, actionable practices that we have to integrate into our communication.
I want to dig into these because this is where the theory hits the pavement for you listening.
Let's do it.
The first practice deals directly with the vocabulary we use when we open our mouths. It's about how we report our truth.
The shift is subtle but profound. You must speak your truth as a localized report from your specific coordinates, not as a universal verdict on theirs.
Like stating where you are.
The practical phrasing is to frame your statements as, this is what is true from here.
This is what is true from here. I actually love the humility of that.
It changes the whole tone.
It does. When I say, this is what's true, full stop, I'm instantly building a wall. I am claiming the single seat and implicitly telling you to get out of the room.
You're threatening the reality again.
But saying from here claims my reality with total firmness, without needing to obliterate yours to make room for it, which flows into the second practice. And honestly, this is the one I struggle with the most.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's about the aftermath of the conversation.
Yes. The practice of letting disagreement be a finished sentence.
That is so deeply uncomfortable for my nervous system. Letting a disagreement just sit there, unresolved.
It feels wrong.
My brain screams that an unresolved disagreement is an active threat.
Because your GPS is demanding to be back on the shared route. But the reality of multiple compasses means that 2 people can both be entirely accurate to their historical inputs and still hold completely different conclusions permanently.
And that is so hard to accept.
Disagreement is not inherently a glitch in the matrix waiting for one person to concede. It can simply be 2 people standing in 2 different places. Right.
You can acknowledge the geographic reality of their position without having to pack up your bags and move to their coordinates.
And if we aren't moving, that brings up the third practice, boundaries.
Right.
If we aren't resolving the disagreement, we have to figure out how to stand next to each other. The material talks about holding boundaries as edges rather than walls. Let's explore the mechanics of that. What is the functional difference between an edge and a wall?
It comes down to energy and intent. A wall is defensive, and it is inherently punitive.
Okay.
A wall says, you are wrong and dangerous for standing over there, so I am blocking you out. It requires constant energy to patrol and maintain.
It's exhausting.
Very. An edge, on the other hand, is just a calm declaration of physical and emotional geometry. An edge simply says, this is where my territory ends. I am staying right here.
Just a statement of fact.
Exactly. It doesn't judge the other person's location. It just clearly defines your own.
An edge doesn't require them to be wrong for you to be safe. It just requires you to know where you stand. That is powerful.
It's a game changer. But it leads to the final practice, which is the one that really forced me to look in the mirror. It's about monitoring our own internal state during a debate, specifically what the text calls the pull to convince.
This is the diagnostic tool for the whole paradigm. We all know that physiological sensation, that urgent magnetic pull to make the other person see it our way.
The desperate need to win. I have to confess, on behalf of myself and probably you listening too, it is a bitter pill to swallow when you realize the mechanics behind that urge.
It really is.
When I'm arguing with someone and I feel that heavy, charged desperation for them to agree with me, my brain tells me it's because they are being frustratingly ignorant.
Of course, that's the easy answer.
But the material points out that this poll is actually vital data about me. That desperate need to convince someone else is usually just the sound of my own internal insecurity.
This raises an important question to sit with. What does it physically feel like inside your body to quietly disagree versus feeling the charged need for resolution?
There's a huge difference.
Huge. When you simply report, I disagree, and that is fine, your nervous system is usually downregulated. Your ground feels solid.
You're not panicked.
Right. You don't need them to validate your compass reading because you already trust it. But when you feel that frantic, I need you to agree with me, it means your own ground feels shaky.
You're off balance.
Your mind is using their potential concession as a crutch to feel safe.
And the tragic irony is, even if I badger them into submission, even if I exhaust them until they say, fine, you're right, it doesn't actually fix my shaky ground.
Not at all.
Their forced agreement won't give my body the internal surety it is craving. It just gives my mind a fleeting, artificial hit of control.
Exactly. If your internal ground is missing, you cannot harvest it from someone else's concession. The work is to go inward and regulate your own system first.
Stop trying to extract safety from their nervous system.
Yes.
It is genuinely wild to step back and observe how much finite human energy we waste in our relationships. We spend hours trying to forcefully rewire someone else's historical biology to perfectly match our own, just so our internal GPS can stop glitching for 5 minutes.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
It really makes you evaluate every heated kitchen debate you've ever engaged in.
It does. And to help anchor all of these mechanics, the source material offers one final, brilliant visualization.
I love this part.
It asks us to entirely abandon the image of a debate as two people fighting over a single chair. Instead, picture a massive circle.
Okay, the big circle.
Imagine people standing all the way around the edge of the circle, shoulder to shoulder. But instead of looking at each other, every single person is facing outward, away from the center, looking out into their own specific landscape.
Facing out into the environment their biology has mapped.
Yes. Everyone is standing at the front of their own unique view. And if you look at the geometry of that circle, none of them is wrong for seeing what is directly in front of them.
Right, because they're looking at different things.
The mountains, the desert, the ocean, it is objectively there from their vantage point. And crucially, none of them needs to walk around the entire perimeter to stand in someone else's spot in order for their own view to remain true.
Wow.
Recognizing the compass of subjective truth is simply recognizing the circle for what it is.
There never was a single seat, just a circle of compasses, all reading completely true for the exact coordinates they were taken from.
That's the core of it.
We have deconstructed a lot of the hidden biological and psychological mechanics behind our arguments today. The idea that rightness isn't a flag on neutral ground that everyone is racing to conquer changes everything about how we engage.
It really does.
But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, building on what we've just uncovered. We've spent this time talking about the micro,
The kitchen debates, the interpersonal friction.
the individual nervous systems. But what happens when we scale this single-seat mistake all the way up? Think about deep societal polarization or massive cultural and international conflicts.
Oh, that's a big question.
Are entire demographics and nations just locked in a macro-level single-seat panic? When massive groups of people feel their shared compass reading is being invalidated, the collective amygdala hijacks the culture.
It becomes a collective survival response.
Exactly. It makes you wonder how much of our global gridlock is driven not by actual irreconcilable facts, but by millions of minds collectively terrified of losing their chair, entirely unable to acknowledge the geographic reality of the people across the circle.
That is a profound way to look at it.
It's a heavy question. But the next time you find yourself in a localized, exhausting debate, take a breath and check your own engine. Are you trying to share your landscape, or are you just trying to steal their chair so you can finally sit down? Something to explore on your own.